Hey everybody, this is part 2 of installing the Detroit Truetrack differential LSD lock, or whatever you want to call it, and the Dana 35 in my 2003 Jeep TJ. In the previous video, we went through and we removed everything, got our setup bearings and all that ready, and now we're going to get everything set up and try to figure it out. What you're going to know is, setting it up like you did for the Dana 30, if you watch that series, is not what we did here.
Alright, we'll put this baby in. I got the old bearing race on there. Okay, so I just got my bearings set up, and with the setup bearings, you don't use any crush sleeve or anything. And for the Dana 35, the book says use bearings between 10 and 20 inch-pounds. So I am sitting at right about 16 or so to move it. So I'm right in the ballpark where I want. Now we can put the differential back in. I don't have any shims on the opposite side. I just kind of did this and pushed it against so I get some backlash showing. But that is my shim thickness already on this side. I used the original spacer plus a bunch of others. So now I gotta basically play the guessing game and figure out how much I need on the opposite side. And then if my thickness is too shallow, too thin, I gotta shim it. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I gotta try to figure out a way how I'm gonna make this work, because that's a fucking awful lot of thick shims right there. But we'll get through this, we'll figure it out. Okay, so now I basically figured out magically what my shim's gonna be roughly. So I gotta measure my backlash, and looks like it's probably a little too big, so I'm gonna have to move shims from this side, put it on that side, and that's going to push it in closer. But let's set it up and measure it first. So right now my backlash is way too big. So now I got the backlash set up at 0.005, which is the minimum that you can have. There's definitely an easier way to do this than what I did it is. I basically put in as many shims as I could here, while I could still achieve backlash here, and then tried to fit as many shims as I could in here while achieving the backlash. And if you could put your shims in on both sides without using a brass hammer, you definitely don't have enough preload. So now I'm going to paint the gear. We're going to check for gear pattern, because the original pinion gear had a really thick shim on it. So I have 0 shims on this one just because my pinion's deeper than the one that I took out. So we're going to check the gear pattern and see how that's going to look. So you can see right there by that pattern, I'm not even anywhere close. So I'm going to take this out, I'm going to put that big shim in the pinion, and we're going to try this again. Alright, let's take the dummy bearing off. Grab that big shim. And we'll try this again. So I just got my pattern after putting that big shim in. I like my coast side, and I like the way it's looking on my drive side. So we're gonna press it with that big shim on there. But my backlash is still out a little bit. I gotta move it 0.002. So I'm gonna have to adjust that, then recheck my gear pattern, and if that's good, we're gonna slam her together. So when you're pressing the pinion bearing, you want to make sure you're on the inside of that race. You don't want to be pressing on the bearing surface. See, I'm pressing it down. I can still spin the bearing, because if you put any pressure on the outside of that surface, you're going to risk damaging it. Felt the bottom out. Alright, now comes the fun part. First off, we got to get it tightened so we can start getting that bearing in there before we can start torquing her down. we gotta put the seal in. Okay, this is where you want to make sure your seal is greased up really well. Yeah, if you're careful, you get it in pretty good. I kind of damaged that edge there a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that. As long as you got the seal in place. It's supposed to be an oil slinger that goes in there too, but mine didn't have it, so adios for that. So now we're ready. Start torquing this bitch down. Alright, this is where shit gets real. This is where you want to red Loctite the shit out of everything. The last thing you want to do is put this together and have that nut back off. Alright, I'm about 26 pounds to move that fucking pinion. I'm calling that good. We're supposed to be between, I think, 20 and 35. The Dana specs are 20 to 40. So fucking, I'm good. Torque multiplier came in handy. Okay, we got the pinion set up. Now we're gonna put the carrier back in. These shims are gonna tap in separate. I always put the shims on this side first and tap these ones in. You can do it vice versa. Really doesn't fucking matter. Okay. Need a brass hammer for this. Because if you could push your shims in, your preload's too loose. You need to lightly tap them in. After you tap them in, you gotta get these ready. So you want to red Loctite the shit out of your bearing caps. Not gonna see that on camera. Match up, back upside down R's. That's how mine stamped. Red Loctite the shit out of these ones. Same thing, your bearing caps must go back in the orientation that they originally came out. Now, according to the service manual, these are supposed to be torqued down to 57 foot-pounds. Ah, yeah. Okay, those fuckers are in. Double check the backlash. So do the backlash. And I'm like 0.008 roughly. Yeah. 0.008. I'm right at the max. right at the max, 0.008. So do the backlash. And I'm like 0.008, roughly. That's what I'm talking about. My fucking drive is right centered. Spin her down. There's my coast. Fuck, I'm happy with that.
Alright, we got it, and it's fucking beer time. In the end, I ended up going back after I had it all together, and I added 0.003 shims to the ring gear side, and that brought my backlash down to 0.005, and it also added some preload. I know in my Dana 30 video I showed the preload where it's supposed to be like 7 to 11 inch-pounds more. The more I read about it, it's really conflicting what you think about it, because it takes more torque to turn a 3.07 gears than it does to turn 4.56. So really, it's kind of a gray area, so I left that part out in this video. Anyways, it's installed. The real test, as always, is going to be once we take it out and see if we're going to have overheating issues, is it going to sound bad. That's going to be the moment of truth, is the first 500 kilometers to determine if something's wrong. And if so, we got to take it apart and determine what it is, fix the solution, and go back at it. Anyways, I'm going to leave my video at this. If you have any questions or comments, post them below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.